Let's see if we can get this up here. All right. Hi. Okay. Greetings and salutations. I have a little guest with me today who's going to remain out of frame. I guess he's kind of like a executive producer. Um, really as a vanity title. But my kitty Luke is sitting here. I actually just posted a picture on the Instagram for the Parinama method because it is very cute. And he has rearranged the desk, so it means that the book is really far away from me. So I'm gonna have to read it like through the, you know, through great trial and tribulation. So, okay, so today I think that this one is pretty interesting. I happen to love this topic. And so we're on page 232 in in the holding patterns for the sixth hub, which has to do with perception and self-reflection. And in many ways, self-awareness, I guess, is like kind of where this hub, um, yeah, like is like a function that exists, primarily in this hub in terms of self-reflection. Now, so this morning, actually, before I was, I was contemplating this, and I remember the first time I ever heard of this term of imaginary audience was probably in my early teens, and I was like gooped and gagged about it. I was like, oh my God, because it actually described so much of how I felt, like where I will say one point on that is that it actually impacted like the knowledge of it actually impacted um my relationship with embarrassment, which is like sustains to this day, which is that I'm not really super embarrassed about stuff. If at all. And a lot of it has to do with this awareness of kind of like nobody's watching. Uh, but and that the perception that people are is actually, the way I see it is like this kind of construct in terms of what they're seeing. And here's the thing. Like one way to put this is to say, what I would say is for other people to absolutely use me as a way to sort of contextualize your own experience, make sense of me in a way that um, is useful to your own process of making sense of yourself in the world. But don't expect me to consider that material for my own self-actualization. Mic drop on that. Like absolutely, there's full freedom. And I'm just going to repeat this because it's a really important point that relates to this hub, which is that others, it's kind of the notion of like everyone's entitled to their opinion. And what I mean by this is like I'm taking that a step further and saying that absolutely people are going to use us as ways to make sense of their own reality, and we're going to be symbolic to them of certain things, and there are going to be qualities that we have that are like pull forward their own hidden self, right? And that's, that's fine. But I think an important separation with that is to see that that process is theirs. And when they try to tag you in for like extra validation for their process to get you to like really double down on a quality that they're emphasizing, that's something to pay attention to. And I understand where this is a place where folks might start to say like, well, what about accountability? And yeah, I mean, this is back to like when we're in chronic shame. It's like we can't really feel the naturally arising sense of actually having done harm or hurt people. So now we're like relying on people saying like, you made me feel this way, which is also kind of a whole thing. But anyway, so as we're talking about perception, there's another thing that I'm going to bring up. I think when I start reading, I don't know when it comes through, but it has to do with a previous reading when I was talking about this, like, mean thought that was very funny that I wasn't ready to share for whatever reason. I wanna talk about, like, I figured out what it is and what it relates to me, and the reason I'm gonna bring it up is that it is topical to this topic, so I'm gonna start reading. So, this is Holding Patterns once again, we're at page 232. I'm gonna be reading over my cat, and if you could see, his little footy is starting to creep over the letters. So so I might start making stuff up that isn't in the actual book. Um, yeah, it'll either be better or worse than the original content, um, or maybe exactly the same. Anyway, okay, I'll read. So, yeah, so in 1967, child psychologist David Elkind coined the term imaginary audience in quotes, referring to individuals, usually early adolescents, who believe that most people are listening to or watching them with great interest. And once again, I'm saying like gooped and gagged. Like when I learned about that, I was in my early adolescence and that like opened up, that cracked open this realization for me that was like, yeah, this is like a thing I'm making up. The self-consciousness. The spell of this developmental stage is usually broken with maturation by realization that almost nobody is watching and those who are looking for those who are The those who are looking are doing it through their own projections and perceptions. Any self-consciousness outside of actual celebrity will involve an outsized sense of other people's interest in us. So, when we examine our own repeating thoughts about other people, we can see how we're working through projections of our own issues. Yeah, okay. Here, uh, yeah, okay. Let's do it. So this morning, like when I was tuning into this, I was thinking about social media and how social media, the quality of it, of kind of it's like this like standing, sort of addressing honestly an imaginary audience because one of the things about social media is that you never really know who's going to see it. It is sort of a probability, and I don't know if that's like in here. Yeah, no. Okay. It's a you're putting something on social media and, and I think one of the things with it is like, it's like, who am I in this? Am I your teacher? Am I your friend? Am I your blah, blah, but like, what's the role that, it's like that we imagine ourselves to play in social media? And at the end of the day, a lot of it is really about the projection of an aspect of ourselves or like large or small that we want to be projecting and whatever people perceive in terms of them being able to contextualize us in a larger like scheme of other aspects of themselves and their lives. I mean, notwithstanding the point being like in social media, it's like, yeah, I was thinking like, well, what is it that when I'm posting, I want people to think? And I don't know about you, but it has, and I kind of did a little kind of walk through um, of understanding what that's showing me about like, okay, in like, what do I think this is? Like what am I showing myself in terms of like how I'm interacting with this? Um, with this kind of very abstracted notion of like posting pictures and thoughts to like who knows who logs in, who knows who the algorithm picks, who knows who actually reads it, who knows like it's literally like who knows. And so the full circle for me, so the one thing so the point that I want to make here is that in a previous reading, a couple like sort of leaps back, I was talking about how I had this like kind of thing. I was having this issue, this kind of issue with somebody about like this kind of thing that was surfacing this interaction, which was like they're a young person who was like born into money. And I was like, I worked for mine, like kind of thing. And that, but the circumstance notwithstanding, just that I was playing out this thing and I just kept doubling down on it, doubling down on it, doubling down on it. And one of the things that very big focuses for me was how ostentatious they are. Here we go. And I was like, and so the mean thought I had that was actually quite funny was I thought, ostentatious wealth and things like loud cars are like the modern day town crier going around saying, look, I'm not poor anymore. Because look, if you're around wealth, certainly old money, it's understated. If anything, there isn't a lot of like focus on status symbols. There might be exceptions to this that I'm not super aware of, or there are exceptions to this that I'm aware of, but in general, because like this proving, this like this overcoming, like feeling inferior is like a work in progress. And so there's that. And so this morning, I was thinking about my social media and I realized, oh, that was me. Because like the point that I'd been able to kind of catch on to is like, what if this can be easy? So my resentment was like in that it had been easy for them. And like the flip for me had been like, isn't that a nice thing to want? Not to resent it, like not instead of resenting, be like, I'd like that for me. And as a result, like being really open to it and appreciating it for other people and wanting it for other people. Now the other sort of like note in there was this thing about being showy with people. And I realized this morning when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, that was me. That was me. Like for my social media, for a significant swath of time, I really curated things to try to like highlight material the material things of my, like, I guess you could say like conventional success. So it'd be travel, things I owned, beautiful decoration, places I went, like that was actually like really like what I tuned into to wanting to show. And and it's kind of amazing because I don't think I'd really connected this full circle because it's kind of disintegrated and softened now. I don't, and so this is part of the Parinama process is like that isn't, I just like that, at least for, now or whatever, but like kind of, here it is that I don't, like that just doesn't have a thing for me, like now, but it did. And it was interesting because I was like, oh, that was something in myself I wasn't willing to be conscious about, was that I wanted to prove to people that I wasn't poor anymore. Like I was like, I mean, it's literally that. It's literally that. It's literally that. I was trying to prove that I was successful. So there are two layered issues there. The easier one for me to access was like, it would be nice if this could be easy. The second layer that was harder to access, which was a part of myself that I hadn't consciously reconciled with, which was the part of myself that had that, which wanted to show people. And also my ability to meanly recognize it in somebody else is, it's like I can see it, so I can see it. So anyway, imaginary audience, let's get back to it. Okay, so the self-consciousness of an imaginary audience feels real during early adolescence. So comparing our appearance, oh my gosh, this foot, it's so cute. It's so cute. It's, like, ridiculous. So comparing our appearance to others surges in this hub. Few people outside our inner circle have the bandwidth to pay attention to us, and even the people in our lives, um, don't do it nearly as much as we think. They're too busy thinking about themselves. So, the only thing more unsettling than feeling constantly watched is knowing that almost nobody is actually doing it. There's a breakthrough when we realize we're not really being watched and that one opinion out of nearly 8 billion souls on earth is not a final and complete assessment of anything about us. And so, like, I'll say, like, the placement of talking about that really specific projection of mine is is to kinda counter any, like, arising notion that's like, "Well, these people have these really strong opinions of me, like, they say these things like blah, bitty, blah, bitty, blah." And, I guess my counter to that is that it has nothing to do with you. It seems like it does, feels personal, it's not. It's not, because the thing is if that person has a change of heart, undergoes like a massive life experience or matures or whatever, and all of a sudden it doesn't bother them anymore. They don't bring it up, or there's other things that are going on in their life that take away from their focus on whatever grievance they have, with like, opinions about, the way you're living your life. It really, like, you don't change. Like, in that scenario, it's like if you don't change and all of a sudden they have other priorities, it's like, just yeah, yeah. Mm-mm. Okay, the gravitational pull of the need for social belonging can yank us out of our orbits, especially in the early teen years. So again, peer appearance confirms belonging, and kids in this stage will beg parents for clothing and shoes with urgency, afraid of being singled out as the only one not following an important style trend, or being unable to signal to the so-called right people that they belong with them. Parents may punish or recoil at a child's personal style experimentation. The approval within a family can create inner conflict in children who wish to express style that either clashes with the family or rivals something they must hide to be accepted. So, another thing that I'll mention just kind of as like a squeaky chair, like as a point of note here, is that in these upper hubs, the role of the parents, unless the lower hubs have not been really well established, will start to diminish, and inevitably, the peer relationships in here, like, do a lot more shaping. And by peer, I even mean like just external community, the world, the globe, like where we're starting to actually contextualize ourselves like in the world, which is like, with our familial connection, should be this, sort of incubator to set us and towards our destiny. But if those parts are kind of, like, underdone, the fixation on them continues, so that they also play into whether how and these get developed, and specifically, things, like, related to belonging and self-worth, and even, like, emotional literacy and feelings of safety, there's that. So, yeah. So, okay, so invisible imaginary audience. I always call it, it's funny, before I used to always call it invisible audience. It turns out it's actually called imaginary audience. It's the thing about fact checking. You write a book and you actually have to like learn what all the bullshit that you talk about actually is. It's not just talking points. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, okay, let's see. What have we got? We've got a cat who's very snuggly right now, and it's really great. Not um but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about imaginary audience is pointing out that so David Elkind, the psychologist, sort of as like the final note on this, like his point was like this represents a stage of development, which is the notion that people are really paying attention to us. And one of the like something that is easy to notice is that this stage, there are people that die in this stage. You know, there are people that literally spend the rest of their life in a state of like self-consciousness and occupation over preoccupation rather over like this notion that like people are paying a lot of attention to them and even validating it by finding groups of people who like kind of support this idea of like watching. You know, this is where judgment of others, like, plays a really big role, like, people are, like, watching. I mean, it's perfectly healthy. It's I hate the H word, but it's like it's, to, like, notice things about people and even criticize things even as a path to, like, self-awareness, like, even, just talking about, my grievance with someone, and complaining about it and, like, ruminating on it. Um, but if you just get stuck in the cycle of the judgment with no, like, interest in, like, understanding why this is surfacing, it's like, well, then then it's like a developmental sort of, looping pattern. It's like the tangle, it just kinda keeps self-validating and tightening and tightening and tightening. And one thing I'll say is that as far as, like, the aging aspect of a face even, like, the stuck facial expressions and, like, you just it's like there's so much, like and, like, one you can't unsee it once you start noticing is that, like, these patterns, these adaptations are physical. You can see people holding them. And it's not it's certainly not our like within our jurisdiction to be trying to who's like, you know, save everyone, right? If anything, it's back to the lighthouse. It's like exemplifying this to the point that someone goes, "What is it that you're doing?" Like, let them knock first. Don't I mean, I can get all of that yeah. Um, but like that thing. But this is yeah, I think that's like kind of it on this. It's a really good one. And I hope to have a little bit more sort of percolate in this, even though I don't really I think one of the things that it's like also one of the things about imaginary audience is thinking, it's like when you're seeing someone see you, like projecting onto them. So this is like not exactly what this is, but it's like in this kind of zone, which is like this morning, I'm sitting on the couch with my cat and I'm thinking, um and my housekeeper is out front blowing leaves and like cleaning up the front area. Our housekeeper. And I thought and I found myself getting kind of like, "Oh, I don't want her to see me here," you know, like, so relaxed and that projection was that I'd be, like, judged for not, like, working in that moment, and I even found myself, like, micro defending myself, being like, "Well, I've, blah, blah, like, I put in my time." It's it's so stupid. It's like so it oh, you know, I mean, it sucks because, like, it's so real and it's so ridiculous. But it just was me. It's a part of me still judging, like, an aspect of, kind of this cultural notion that, the Protestant work ethic, that people that work hard are like, there's a moral superiority to that. Whereas working is just it's satisfying, and also, like, we've adapted to just working, like, way too much, like, it's, like, unprecedented, even when people were doing, like, manual labor, running their farms, like, the intensity and the, like, the span, like, people like, oof, yeah. It's funny, like, one note on that, I remember in, like, Turkey and India and some countries where people would say, like, "Well, we work 16-hour days." But I used to be like, "Yeah, but you're, like, napping on the couch for, like, 4 hours in the afternoon." It's they don't it's like, like, the idea of, like, working long hours where it's like there's life that can exist in the working. Where it's like there's, like, talking to people, there's reclining, there's sort of, like, stepping in and doing something, and then it's kinda like, working at a pace that's, like, not dehumanized kinda thing, and it's, like, very foreign, certainly to the world that I've come up in and inhabited rigorously for a very significant amount of time relative to my life. So, yeah, so back to just sort of like the projection, the, imaginary audience where it's like, what do you think somebody thinks of you? Using that as an opportunity to self-reflect. And it's embarrassing. It's like kind of back to like that age where it's like when I was laughing about that, it's because it's kind of embarrassing. And then like you say it and like anybody who listens is like, that's not a big deal. So it's like audience thing. It's like there's a whole thing in it. But anyway, okay. So that's it for me. That's it for me. And scene. So anyhow, I hope you, wherever you are right now, that you get to relax or do some nice work or yeah, or whatever. Wherever. Go to sleep. Get a nice sleep. Watch another YouTube. I don't know, whatever. All right. So, sending you lots of love and any comments I will respond to. If you want to reach out to me privately and you don't have my contact information, you can DM me at the Parinama Method on Instagram. And yeah, thank you. All the interaction is it's really encouraging. It just feels good. Like I love this. Um, as a sort of a standalone. But, also, it's so enriching for me to know about you. Like, I really yeah. Yeah, we're in this together. Like, this is, like, absolutely it's a team sport. Okay. Alright, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.